Something remarkable is happening this year. Humpback whales showed up along the shores of our island in October, and 3 months later, they're still here. They've never stayed this long, not even close. And all over the Salish Sea, humpbacks have returned in numbers not seen in 100 years. It's late December, the winter solstice. A friend calls. She says there are whales in the bay, so I come quick. It's just snowed. The Salish Sea is in a big, deep freeze. Yes, there they are, 2 of them out there by the island. It's been a rush to get here, but the unhurried energy of the whales pulls me in, settles me down, as they rise, glide, and then roll out of sight. The whales come shoreward, almost in among the floats, now empty of their summer boats. I'm struck by how leisurely they swim, and how close they stay together. Oh, they're 3 whales, not 2. They're so tight together, it's hard to tell them apart. There are a few cormorants about, but nothing else suggests that the whales are feeding. Instead, they wander the bay, occasionally rolling together, staying tight. I can see their tails and fins so well that I'm sure whale scientists are going to be able to identify each whale individually. And sure enough, later, humpback scientists give me some background on each whale. Most interesting to me is that the whales are a bunch of youngsters. There's not an adult among them. One whale, with a pattern on its flukes that looks to me like spilt paint, is nicknamed Smoke, a 3-year-old born near Hawaii in 2020 to a mother named Flame. The second whale is Telson, with a near all-white tail pattern. This, it turns out, is the first report of Telson in the Salish Sea. The third whale is the youngest, an unnamed 2-year-old born in 2021, a calf to the whale named Ghost. The marine scientist who later looked at my video thought the whales were likely just playing together in the bay. And perhaps there was some adolescent posturing going on, a prelude to their time someday on the breeding grounds. As I watch, I remember what a remarkable autumn of whales it's been. For over 3 months now, humpbacks have been in residence around our island, feeding along our shores. And our community is buzzing. Never before have humpbacks been with us for more than a month at a time, and even those visits have only occurred in the past 5 years. And it was only 15 years ago that the first humpback in 100 years was observed in this part of the Salish Sea. But our local story fits a larger pattern. 2022 set a record for the number of humpback whales recorded in the Salish Sea, almost 400. And with all the trouble that the world's oceans are in, this humpback comeback is a ray of hope that our Salish Sea is still okay, at least for humpbacks. Among the larger whale clan, humpbacks are the winged whale, reflecting their gigantic 5-meter-long pectoral fins. These great wings make humpbacks highly maneuverable and versatile, able to target schooling fish and krill with a variety of feeding strategies. And like other baleen whales, humpbacks are filter feeders, engulfing great volumes of seawater with giant expandable throats to catch prey schools of fish and plankton, then straining them out through sieve-like baleen plates. And humpbacks are the acrobats of the big whales, breaking the surface in breaches, lunges, lobs, and a variety of fin and tail slaps. They get their name from the sharp, rounded hump of their backs that often occurs when they dive. And humpbacks are great transoceanic journeyers, feeding during the summer in the cold, rich coastal waters from Alaska to California, then swimming thousands of kilometers south to their winter breeding grounds in Hawaii, Mexico, or Central America. But for more than a century in the North Pacific, we hunted humpbacks hard. In the Salish Sea from the 1860s to 1907, dozens of humpbacks were harpooned and dragged to a whaling station just north of Nanaimo. The whaling stopped when they ran out of whales. But ever since we stopped killing them in the mid-1960s, humpback whales have been slowly reclaiming their ancient feeding grounds along the BC coast. For the decades following, humpback visits to the Salish Sea were sparse. That changed about 15 years ago, and since then the number of humpback visitors has grown steadily to about 400 individuals. As I watch the whales in the bay, my thoughts get pulled back to my summer past. It's mid-August, and I'm up among the islands that straddle the northern boundary of the Salish Sea. Here, the ebb and flow of tides are squeezed between islands, creating tidal rapids that are rich feeding grounds for humpbacks. It's my first morning, and I'm here to watch the whales feed. I wake to a humpback just offshore. I'm camped by a tidal rapids, and for 6 hours the ebbing tide flows seaward, then reverses to a landward flow of the flood tide. Right now the tide's turning from ebb to flood, and I sit bathed in the morning quiet. Offshore, the whale floats with the current, resting for the busy day to come. An hour later, the sun has burned off the mist, and I settle in to watch. The tide has turned, the flood is on. Gulls are arriving by the hundreds. They too are here to feed. And out among the gulls I see murres, small black and white seabirds coming up from their dives. Suddenly, a humpback surfaces. And then another, further out. I know that at this particular site, whales mostly come to feed during the flood tide. Gulls, murres, whales, they're all here to hunt herring. Herring spawn in the inside waters of the Salish Sea and along the coast further north. And for their first 2 or 3 years, the juveniles live in these inside waters, before becoming migratory and heading to offshore waters each summer to feed. Whales, dolphins, gulls, murres, and others all come to the tidal rapids along the coast to feed on juvenile herring. What makes these rapids such a herring hunting ground, I'm not clear. Perhaps the turbulent waters force the herring to surface where they're easier to hunt. Or perhaps the herring are drawn to the eddies of the rapids, where they feed on plankton in the passing current. But what is clear is that the herring hunters all show up when the tide flows hard. A humpback surfaces, coming my way. It swims through a flock of murres just offshore. Then another humpback appears, and another. It's like someone just sounded the dinner gong. Now the place is busy with whales, perhaps 6 or more, I can't tell. Way out, I notice a great cluster of swirling gulls. I'm betting that a flock of murres have corralled some herring into a tight ball, and the gulls are attacking from above. Oh, wow! That humpback must have come right up through the herring ball. The flood tide picks up steam. I watch a gull swirl that's close by. Murres are all about, diving and bobbing to surface. Somewhere below the mirrors are corralling a school of herring. Oh my! That was a whale doing a sideways lunge right through a herring ball, pectoral fin and fluke out of the water. The whales keep moving about, diving here and there. Then I see something brand new to me. A humpback's doing a tail stand, rotating slowly, its mouth open. Then it lunges upwards, inflating its flexible throat, and, I'm guessing, a host of herring go down the hatch. This must be what whale scientists call trap feeding. The whale positions itself near a dispersed herring school, opens its mouth, the herring seek shelter in the dark recesses, and gulp. Then the same whale lunges, but it doesn't seem to swallow. Instead, pauses with its mouth open. Then closes it. I sit there wondering about what I just saw. It seemed half lunge, half trap. But all this feeding has me in a bit of shock. I've never seen such intense surface activity among whales. Clearly, there are a lot of herring here, schooling near the surface. Then there's a gull swirl so close I can see the gulls grabbing the herring. I let my camera roll, knowing that a humpback is likely on its way. Sure enough. I look around. The whales are also diving to forage, but that feeding in the deep turbulence is hidden from view. And further out, I see some dull porpoise feeding too. All this whale activity attracts attention. A passing boat stops to watch. Unfortunately, the boat comes in way too close. Oh my! An eruption of thousands of herring fleeing two lunging humpbacks. There's a silver scattering of herring all around the whales. And so it goes. Over the next week, day after day, I watch the whales feed. Each day as the flood tide kicks in, the gulls, seabirds, and then humpbacks appear. And a pattern repeats. The seabirds corral the herring, balling them up. The ever opportunistic gulls follow the seabirds, marking the herring ball below with a shrieking wheel of white. And the whales, alert, speed their way there, arriving with great lunges or crafty ambushes. And all this wild feeding energy is what I love. It reminds me of the richness of these waters. Less than they once were, but still rich, still worth fighting for. For these are our Pacific shores, where deep, nutrient-rich ocean waters upwell, and rainforest rivers empty, fertilizing microscopic algae that feed krill and other tiny animals, that in turn feed the herring that then feeds so much else, from seabirds and salmon, to humpbacks and porpoise, to seals and sea lions. So I stand here watching the three young whales play, and I wonder about their futures here in the Salish Sea. Humpback whales can live 50 years or more, And I do wonder if they'll be able to live out their lives, returning each year to the Salish Sea to feed. What will the Salish Sea be like in 10, 15, 30 years? Already, we're 8 million people living on its shores and growing fast. And already, our noise, our industry, our ships, our wastes have so changed this inland sea from the place that the whale ancestors knew a century ago. Somehow we need to learn how to live with whales. That will mean many things. Figuring out how to prevent vessels striking whales, how to end whales tangling in fishing gear, how to keep plastics out of the oceans, how to reduce undersea noise, and much more. We can do it, because whales have just as much a right to thrive as we do. And also because we need the whales. We need the inspiration and hope they bring to our lives. Their presence kindles in us an awe and wonder for the wild around us and for the wild in us. They reassure us that the ocean is still okay for them. We need to know that.